My father-in-law stole my company, the full story, the version no one else knows. My name is David Harlan. In 2012, at 25 years old, I dropped out of Stanford's PhD program in machine learning to start NexusEdge. The idea was simple on paper: use AI to optimize global supply chains in real time. I coded the first prototype on a second-hand MacBook in a one-bedroom apartment in Mountain View, living off ramen and credit cards. By 2015, we had a working product, 12 employees, and our first seven-figure contract with a major retailer. That's when I met Sarah Harrington at a tech mixer in San Francisco. She was sharp, funny, beautiful, the kind of person who could command a room without trying. We clicked instantly. 6 months later, she introduced me to her parents. Richard Harrington was old money disguised as new money. His family had made a fortune in commercial real estate after World War II, and he'd tripled it with a private equity firm called Harrington Capital. He was charming in that practiced, predatory way, always smiling, always calculating. At our first dinner, he grilled me about unit economics, churn, lifetime value. I thought he was interested. I didn't realize he was sizing up his next mark. In early 2016, he made the offer: $2.5 million for 18% equity and a board observer seat, upgradable to full voting if we hit certain milestones. He framed it as keeping it in the family. Sarah was thrilled, her dad finally approving of someone she loved. I was desperate for runway. I said yes. The money hit our account in March 2016. We hired aggressively, moved into proper offices, signed bigger clients. Revenue went from $1.2 million in 2015 to $28 million in 2018. Series B, Series C, unicorn status by 2020. Richard upgraded to a full board seat in 2019 to guide us through the public markets. I didn't fight it. He'd earned it, I told myself. The first red flag came in late 2019. I was reviewing expense reports before our S1 filing when I noticed a $187,000 payment to RWH Strategic Partners LLC. I'd never heard of them. I asked our CFO, Elena, who'd been with me since year one. "Board-approved advisory fee," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Richard said you were slammed with the roadshow and signed off remotely." I checked my email. There was a DocuSign from me approving it, except I'd been in Tokyo that week with no laptop. The timestamp was 3:14 a.m. Pacific time. I brought it up casually at the next board meeting. "Richard, what exactly did RWH Strategic do for that fee?" He didn't blink. "Due diligence support for the secondary sale. You were traveling non-stop, David. I didn't want to bother you with minutia." The rest of the board, 3 of his old Yale friends he'd brought on over the years, nodded along. Motion carried to approve retroactively. I let it go. That was mistake number 1. By 2021, the payments had become routine. Every quarter, like clockwork, $150K to $300K to variations of RWH, Harrington Advisory, Bedford Capital Strategies. Always perfectly documented, always approved when I was unavailable. I started asking harder questions. Richard started scheduling strategy offsites that conveniently overlapped with my inquiries. Sarah started saying I was obsessed with petty cash when we should be celebrating our success. In 2022, our daughter Lily was born. I took 8 weeks paternity leave, the first real break I'd had in a decade. When I came back, Richard had pushed through a new chairman's compensation package, $750,000 annual retainer plus expenses. The board approved it 4-1. I was the lone no vote. That night, Sarah cried in our kitchen. "You embarrass Dad in front of his friends. He's done so much for us, for you, and you treat him like he's stealing." I didn't have proof yet, just a gut feeling and a growing folder of suspicious invoices. I started investigating in secret. Nights after the kids were asleep, I'd sit in my home office pulling bank records, cross-referencing entity filings in Delaware and the Caymans. The pattern was meticulous: money out to shell companies, then layered through 3 or 4 entities before landing in accounts controlled by Richard. total by mid-2023, roughly $14 million. But the real bomb came in September 2023. I hired a forensic accounting firm under an NDA. They traced the original $2.5 million investment from 2016. It hadn't come from Richard's personal brokerage account like he claimed. It came from Harrington Capital's employee pension fund. He'd looted his own employees' retirement savings to buy into my company, then used his board seat to steal from NexusEdge to cover the hole he'd left behind. Classic Ponzi, robbing Peter to pay Paul, except Peter was my life's work. I felt physically sick. I confronted Elena privately. "How long have you known?" She cried. "Since 2020. He threatened to destroy my career, said he'd tell the street I'd cooked the books if I ever spoke up. I have kids in college. I was terrified." I didn't fire her. I needed her testimony later. I spent the next year building an airtight case, wore a wire to board meetings, legal in California with one-party consent, recorded Richard dismissing my concerns, redirecting conversations, outright lying about vendor relationships. I documented everything. Richard sensed I was closing in. Thanksgiving 2024 at their Greenwich mansion was tense. After dinner, he cornered me in his study. "You've been asking a lot of questions lately, David. People are starting to talk about your focus, your temper. Sarah's worried you're burning out." I stared at him. This man who'd stolen $20 million from my company was gaslighting me in real time. "We think it would be best if you took a step back," he continued. "Mental health is important. Maybe spend Christmas in Aspen with just the immediate family. Give you space to recharge." Immediate family meaning without me. Sarah delivered the official exclusion 2 days later. "Dad thinks it'll be calmer if you stay home this year. The kids and I will go to Aspen. You can rest." I didn't argue. I was too deep in the endgame. December 2024, I worked around the clock with the forensic team and a former DOJ prosecutor I'd hired. On December 20th, we walked into the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan with 400-plus pages of evidence, bank records, recordings, witness statements. Christmas Eve, I was alone in our Tribeca loft. Sarah and the kids were in Aspen. I ate Thai takeout and watched the snowfall. At 7:03 a.m. Christmas morning, my phone lit up. Bloomberg alert. Richard Harrington, chairman of Unicorn NexusEdge, indicted on federal fraud charges. CNBC. Sources say Harrington embezzled from own firm's pension fund to fund investment in son-in-law's company, then looted startup to cover tracks. Twitter was on fire, my name trending alongside his. Sarah called at 7:15 a.m. screaming, "How could you do this to us? On Christmas? Dad says it's all lies, that you're having a breakdown and fabricated everything because you hate him." I waited until she ran out of breath. "Ask your father why the original $2.5 million came from his pension fund. Ask him about RWH Strategic Partners. Then look at the evidence the FBI has. When you're ready to talk, I'll be here." She hung up. The kids called later, confused, angry, scared. I told them I loved them and that the truth would come out soon. Richard was arrested December 27th at Teterboro trying to board a private flight to the Caymans. The perp walk photos were everywhere. The man who'd worn Tom Ford suits, now in an orange jumpsuit, handcuffed between 2 agents. The trial started April 2025. I testified for 4 days. The prosecution played my recordings, Richard's own voice dismissing my concerns, admitting to creative structuring, laughing about how I was too buried in code to notice the money. His defense tried to paint me as the jealous, controlling son-in-law who'd orchestrated a vendetta against Richard, but the paper trail was undeniable. The jury deliberated less than 6 hours. Guilty on all 42 counts, 24 years in federal prison, $48 million in restitution. They found even more than I'd uncovered. Sarah showed up at my apartment the night the verdict came down. She'd lost weight. Her eyes were hollow. "I saw everything.
The pension records, the recordings, the emails where he told Mom to keep me focused on family whenever you started asking questions. Her voice broke. He used me to distract you. I was his unwitting accomplice. We talked until dawn. She moved back in the next week. We started couples therapy, slowly, carefully, began rebuilding something that wasn't based on her father's lies. The kids came home for summer break 2025. We had family therapy too. It was brutal. Tears, anger, guilt, but we got through it. NexusEdge not only survived the scandal, it thrived. The integrity CEO narrative brought in ethical investors. We went from 180 million run rate to 400 million by end of 2025. I bought out Richard's shares with the restitution money, and now the company is 100% independent again. Sarah cut contact with her parents completely. Her mother still sends occasional emails claiming